This is a female fantasy armor made out of paper. And in this video, we're going to make one with this one-page template. All you need is a printer and paper to print it out, along with a few more handy tools. So, if you want to make a small-scale fantasy armor for a female character but don't have a 3D printer, this template is perfect for you. Links of the template are available down in the description. And stick till the end of the video for the animated battle sequence along with the paper katana. And since I've made attempts making small-scale armor for Bodygun, I feel the need to try a similar method for when I made that. And it involves something like this. One day it will work. Now admittedly, I'm no expert in history regarding armor, nor I have the experience in making protective garment for the opposite sex or any protective garment in general. However, according to my very brief research in making this video, female armor isn't very common historically, and to my understanding, armor was just, well, armor. So, instead of looking what's commonly available historically, we're going to take inspiration from MMORPGs, because why not? And for that, we need to set up some parameters. First, it has to fit well with the 1/12 scale figure, and for this, we'll use Bodychan as the base. And we'll also have to establish what constitutes an armor. But since we're focusing on the fantasy aspect, we can be a little bit more flexible and favor more on the aesthetic side. Additionally, it should cover the main body, and ideally, but not necessarily, cover the shoulder all the way to the hips area. And of course, it should be customizable. That is to say, you can attach whatever design you want on it. And going with the fantasy route could lead to more complicated design. But for simplicity, it needs to be simple to assemble, wear, as well as remove from the figure for you the viewers at home for when you decide to make one for yourself. So for that, let's go with the corset style design, since it's an iconic design that has been around historically, but for the purpose of this video, a corset type design is quite articulatable to an extent, especially for the limbs. And with all that established, we just need to make it. And surprisingly, even without much experience, it's actually not that hard. Nope, not this time. Oh, what's that? This? Oh, it's nothing. It's just, it's just a little trial and error is all. No big deal. Wait, why are you zooming out? Go back. Go back. Let's get started, shall we? To make this, we'll need the right tools for the job. So grab your cutting tool or an X-Acto knife. We'll also need a sharp pair of scissors along with the PVA glue for this project and a small sheet of aluminium foil. We'll get to that in a second. Now we have all the tools we need. First, download and print the template armor file from the links down in the description. There is a few file format, namely the PDF and PNG image file. And if you're downloading the PDF file format, make sure to preview it first if the option is available to you to make sure it's the right file. And of course, practice digital safety when downloading anything online. The template should look what you see here on screen. And if the file looks kinda sus, namely you can't view the file or unable to print it right off the page, do not download it. And if you are printing the PDF file format, it is important to make sure you print it with the 100% scale of the PDF file. I found that different printers and different operating systems have a different preset settings. So make sure to print it with the correct settings. And make sure to view the PDF file before downloading so you know exactly what you're printing. The little symbols and icon you see here are indicators to keep you on track. Let me explain what they mean. The two small arrows pointing towards themselves means to join and connect the two parts as seen on screen. I prefer to use the paper that we're already cutting to join and connect the two parts together. But if you prefer to use a larger piece or use a different way, say a tape, that works as well. The circle arrow indicates the long strip should be wrapped around itself like so. The dashed lines are to be cut with a paper cutter or an X-Acto knife carefully to allow strips of paper to be inserted and passed through. The zigzag-like symbol is to inform you so that you won't accidentally apply glue to this general area. It is there to allow for articulation or movement for the hinge mechanic function. And once it's fresh out of the printer, go ahead and cut it with your preferred cutting tool. Don't worry if the pieces are not cut to a T. Small imperfections are negligible, but it could affect the fine details during assembly. And this goes without saying, but practice safety first when using any cutting tool. And if you cut something you're not supposed to, remember, you can always print another. Now, what I like to do before cutting is to prepare the template in a way so that it makes the cutting process much easier later and more streamlined by cutting the small and complicated corners with the cutting knife. This is of course optional, but I find this works for me and it saves me a lot of effort and time when cutting out larger pieces. Okay, let's first make the corset piece. And the first piece is part A. This part is one of the two most complicated components because the assembly is much more complex, not to mention how small the pieces are. There are in total 5 pieces for part A, and that is for the bust area. Joint the allocated corners of the pieces with glue as shown on screen for parts A to come to shape. Take your time to join all the small pieces together and shape them with your pinky finger to make sure the glue adhered and reinforce the shape of the chest piece. Additionally, remember the aluminum foil? Go ahead and make a ball out of it around the size of the bust so it's easier for you to give it a spherical shape. If it's too small, it will be much difficult for you to use it. Too big and it will not fit. And do your best to make sure the surface is as rounded as possible as you're making the aluminum ball. And once you're happy with the shape, it's time for part B, which is the underbust. Fold here as seen on screen to connect the bust with the underbust. Use a narrow tool like the tip of your scissor to press down and adhere the two parts together. Make sure to use the aluminum ball that you shaped earlier to help reinforce the shape, as well as the glue to adhere to the two parts properly. Cut out the small long piece at the top of part A and make sure to glue both ends of the piece while avoiding the middle area. And go ahead and attach it to part A. Do the same with the small long piece at the bottom of part B. This will act as a hinge that links to the torso, which is also the next part, part C, which is the front torso, specifically the abdomen area. Slide the top side into the hinge of the previous part as seen on screen and decide how much movement you like. And when you're happy with that, lock it down in place by bending the top like so and apply glue. And that's it for part C. Easy, right? Next, instead of doing part D, let's do part E first, as I found that it's much easier to do this part first for when we do proceed with part D. This part covers the remaining waist area for the figure and it's relatively simple. First, connect all the corners which is labeled on the template and apply glue like so to link with the previous part. And once you finish with that, move on to part D, which is the rest of the back side of the base armor. This part gives it the hourglass shape. So it's a good idea to have a 1/12 scale figure to test for fittings if you have one available to you, especially if you have body chun. Roll the long strap at the top on the inside towards the neck area and apply glue. This is for the shoulder strap for when we do assemble it. Then join the sides which indicate so as seen on screen for both sides. Follow the steps as seen on screen as you reach this point. And at any point, use the 1/12 scale figure if you have one to cross-reference properly to fit the base armor. And if you prefer a more revealing look that is more akin to the iconic corset design, I've also included a Type 2 design for you. It is basically the same, just with less parts to join. To hold the piece onto the figure, we'll have to use a back strap on the Type 2 design. So, after determining the fittings of the piece on your 1/12 scale figure, cut out the smaller piece next to it on the template. Glue and attach as shown and slide the back strap into place. done, it's time to move on to the next part, part F. This is the strap at the shoulder for any additional armor piece design you have in mind. It is also one of the two more complicated ones to work with. The next step is to insert the narrow strap into the upper back gap that you've rolled earlier. Follow along the opening at the back. I would also like to say that this is one of the more fragile part of this template as well. Not just because this strap is narrow and thin, but the hook mechanism here is prone to break. So keep that in mind. So you might be wondering, what is this hook mechanism am I referring to? Well, remember the small long strip at part A? This is where this hook will latch onto as seen on screen. Remember not to pull this too hard, and if it keeps coming off, you can choose to glue it down, but it does have its own downside. So think it over if that's something you want to do. Here, I decided that the hook is much easier to latch onto if it's on the front. So I've added the same component for the hook to latch onto the front side. This will work either way on both sides, and it really depends the look you're going for and why this design is much more customizable. There's also this optional back strap component if you want to fasten the waist area. This will secure the corset base in place and accentuate the hourglass figure look based on the fittings of your figure. Simply follow the steps you see with glue and slide the back strap from either side and secure it in place. And that's it for the base armor. This is type 1, but you can also go with type 2 if that's the design you prefer. At this point, you can add your own shoulder design. The template also included the shoulder strap for you to use, though it can be relatively small to work with. And if not, you can use the shoulder and hip piece template that is provided to you. First, let's connect the top piece for the shoulder component. Join the corners as seen on screen, and you should finish with something that looks like a C-shaped piece. Then cut the next piece below that, glue and connect the top part of this piece to create a curved shaped piece. Once the glue has set, glue the curved piece with this C-shaped piece. Make another curved piece below of the previous piece from the template and glue that to the main piece. Now we have a semblance of a shoulder armor. Glue the hinge piece on both sides at the end, except for the middle part, into the main shoulder piece. And make sure you can slide in the necessary piece for the hinge mechanism to function properly. When you're sure you can slide the piece in, repeat the previous steps by making 2 more curved pieces along with its hinge component. And after you finish with the 2 larger curved pieces, there's one small one and attach the hinge component onto it and you're done. And once you finish one, go ahead and make another one by repeating the same step to complete the shoulder set. And we'll need something to bind the shoulder pieces to the main armor, so cut out the shoulder strap and roll the top as shown on screen. Easy, right? Well, now here comes the hard part. Attach the shoulder piece with the shoulder strap as shown on screen by closing the loop on the shoulder strap after looping in the shoulder piece on each side. We're getting close to finish the whole set. All that remains is the hip piece. There are 3 major pieces on each side and 3 minor pieces which are their own hinge component. It is designed this way so that the figure's bottom half won't be restricted in its mobility. You can start from whichever you like, but I prefer to do it from the top piece going down, starting from the hinge component and insert the next piece. Proceed to lock it down in place with glue, and when you're happy with how much range you want it to move. The more give allows more movement, and the less restricted the figure's legs will be. Apply the same step as you progress and make another piece when you're done with the first hip piece. And And with that, the hip armor pieces are finished. All that's left is to do the assembly onto the main body armor. What I like to do at this point is to put the pieces onto the main body first without glue, just to see what it would look like and how it would look like. And when I have the exact position in mind, I'll apply glue onto the lower half of the main body first, as seen on screen, of where I want the pieces to be and attached. Specifically, the exposed side where the hinges are onto the lower torso of the main body armor. Repeat it once more to complete the assembly. And finally, cut out the final piece and apply glue onto it to attach onto the main body itself. And just like that, we have a 1/12 scale fantasy inspired paper armor. And if you're going with a design without the long strap insertion like type 2, you can use a longer strap labeled shoulder strap Mark II and strap it onto the upper chest area and use glue to fully secure it. It should look something like this. And if you want to make your own template, you can always steal a page out of Cosplayer by using a cling wrap or cling film thing and use a masking tape as well as a marker. Begin by wrapping the figure with said cling wrap film thing once and wrap another where you want the armor to be with masking tape. Then use a marker to draw out the outline where you want it to cut. I'm going to roughly draw where I drew the first time when trying to figure out where I should cut and make a bunch of iterations from that. Use a pair of sharp scissors to make a cut instead of a paper cutter or an X-Acto knife to avoid any damage onto your figure. And once you cut it out, you should have a cross section, or depending on your design, you should have a larger piece. And make a mental note or take a photo or two and proceed to cut it into smaller pieces for it to lay flat in order for you to trace and make a template from it. And what you see here is a quick demonstration with the same principle and idea. But I did one off camera, which is also one of many iterations up till the template we use in this video. A good tip is to fold the material and find the middle center axis for each part and make an inverted copy. This can save you a lot more time and looks much better when cutting out. Here you can see the upper chest area, abdomen, underbust, the right and left bust, and the back area. And if you find yourself making multiple iterations, that's normal and part of the process. It took quite a bit of iterations to find the best one that's relatively simple to make and reproduce. So be patient and you'll land on the best iterations. And if you prefer to just changing small aspect, like if you have a figure that is smaller or has a taller frame, go ahead and put it onto an image editor with a PNG file format, which is also included in the links down below. And if you don't have an image editor, you can always find an open sourced ones to avoid any subscription fees. I recommend GIMP or GIMP or Paint.net. They have been incredibly useful in the past for me, so if that's something you want to do, go ahead and do that. If you found this interesting or enjoyed the video, remember to drop a like. There's also another video with another 1/12 scale armor template based on body gun. So go ahead and watch that if you haven't yet. And I want to thank the first Patreon that supported me while making this video. If you want to support the channel, you can do so at Patreon or be a channel member. I post updates of current and future projects bi-weekly, sometimes weekly, as well as the behind the scenes stuff on Patreon page and the members community posts. You'll also get exclusive access to previous iterations and additional template and prototypes I've made that didn't make onto the video. Alright, that's it from me. I hope you have a great day, and if you do have a design of your very own, I'd love to see it on Instagram. Tag or share it with me at Abstraxtudio. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more stop motion videos. And in saying that, it's time for the stop motion fight.